Hello and welcome to Random Offense. I'm your host, Ethan Strauss. We will be joined by the inimitable. I tried to say a really hard word to pronounce just because I needed a superlative to introduce our guest, the greatest sports media critic there is out there. That is Ryan Glassbeagle of Front Office Sports. Have we a show for you today? We're going to be talking about Ryan's favorite team having to implode itself because its best player, superstar Giannis Antetokounmpo, appears to want out. We might question whether there's some fakeness, some propaganda attached to LeBron's selfless ending of his 10 points per game streak. We will be discussing the huge mergers in the media. But the first topic, as I call Ryan up to the floor, is Lane Kiffin, CAA, ESPN, conflicts of interest, conspiracy. And before we get into it, I'll remind you that if you want to call in yourself and ask a question, you can raise your hand and do that. So, Ryan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Happy Friday.
Mhm.
Sports are big business. As we'll talk about on the rest of the show. So yeah, let's get right into this Kiffin, Sexton, ESPN thing, and it's been percolating all week. So you want me to do the expository?
Please do, sir. Please do. You're more of a college football expert than I am out here in the West Coast.
I don't know about that, but I mean maybe more than you, but I don't know if I would label myself as an expert. So essentially, Lane Kiffin left Ole Miss for LSU this weekend. Have you seen this? Have you heard about this?
No, tell me all about it. That's crazy. Aren't they good? Weren't they going to
So
the
yeah, I
playoff?
mean it is crazy. Like, college football is unlike any other sport where literally like they're about to make the college football playoff. They could win a national title, and the coach bolts because he's going to a school where he thinks he'll have a better chance at winning a national title.
Yeah.
They're probably also paying him more. But
Yes.
I mean, yeah, look, no one's gonna dismiss the idea that LSU is gonna have a better opportunity year in and year out than Ole Miss to win a national title. I mean, when you have like the governor getting involved and like basically having the state back a $50 million buyout for the last coach, I mean, it just the culture down there is something like
It's
totally
a higher
foreign to me.
status. It's a higher status school. LSU is just one of the biggest, if not biggest, football programs. But you were saying,
Yeah,
sir.
it's certainly more of a blue blood, especially in the last, I don't know, 50 years or whatever. And they've won multiple national titles with multiple coaches. So, anyways, there's basically two college football coaching agents like that dominate like the whole landscape. It's Trace Armstrong, who's at Athletes First, and then Jimmy Sexton, who is at CAA. Sexton has just like astounding proportion of the SEC head coaches. And this is an aside, but I don't think the general public totally realizes that between CAA, WME, and UTA, it just represents a ridiculous proportion of athletes, coaches, front office executives in sports, and then Hollywood actors,
Yeah.
news people on the news. Like these are like very vertically integrated operations. Those three agencies, they're not the only agencies that exist, but if you take a pie chart of the three of them, they have a lot of the people across sports, entertainment, and TV. And so is just this master chess player with the way that he moves these coaches around and gets leverage for other ones. And he's a super agent. That label very much applies to him, and he represents Lane Kiffin, and he also represents Nick Saban. And so on game day last week, they were making this really preposterous argument from the vantage of almost anybody who saw it that Ole Miss should let Lane Kiffin stay and coach the rest of the year while he's working to build like next year's roster at LSU, which is a direct competitor of theirs.
Yeah.
And it's just something that like nobody would really abide by. And it's also interesting because Nick Saban once fired Lane Kiffin when Kiffin was Saban's offensive coordinator, literally between the national semifinals and the national title game. like Kiffin was going to leave to coach Florida Atlantic University. Saban was like, "You did a bad job coaching the offense in the semifinals. You're distracted. You're out." So
Mm.
literally, he has had this exact type of situation play out when Kiffin wasn't even the head coach. He was an assistant, and he fired him on the eve of the national title game, which just like never happened in any other scenario. So Saban and Herb Street are making this like argument that really just doesn't seem to like make a lot of sense. And as another side note, I keep doing these, but Herb Street used to be represented by CAA. I believe he is not represented by CAA anymore. I believe he's at WME. I didn't like confirm that a
Yeah.
million percent, but that's what my belief is. And so, but everyone like remembers when Herb Street was rep by CAA, and then Reese Davis is rep by CAA. He's the host of Game Day. I believe Desmond Howard is. He at least was. I don't know if he is anymore. So, and then Pat McAfee, they're saying he is, but he also used to be, but isn't anymore. So, anyways, we do have Saban and Reese Davis rep by CAA at the very least, and they're having this conversation that is in the CAA client's interest of saying that he because Kiffin wants to stay. He wants to be a shot at coaching in the playoffs and the national
Mm.
championship game potentially. But just from Ole Miss's perspective, he's literally going to a hated rival. So why would they allow that?
Yeah, and probably gives them more opportunity to recruit away the players who are there and bring them completely onto his new staff to compete against them. And this is one of our favorite topics. We usually look at it from the NBA perspective, the hidden hand of CAA or agencies in general. And I think what I want to establish is that I don't have any sort of hatred of Lane Kiffin. I can understand why he has done what he has done. It all makes sense to me. I just don't want to be lied to. I just don't want to be misled. And I don't want to be told that this isn't a conflict of interest. I would have such little issue with this if the people who are represented by CAA covering sports would just admit that and talk about that and say, hey, this is just how I feel anyway, but I've got this conflict of interest. Or when they do bring it up, because sometimes they do bring it up, but when it's brought up, it's in the most defensive manner possible. You know, I'm giving an example here. I think it was Awful Announcing that found this, where Reese Davis on game day, which incidentally, I believe Lane Kiffin is going to appear on, which should be interesting, uh, dismisses, in quotes, preposterous theory about ESPN and CAA. It's preposterous, right? It's preposterous to think that these people who are defending the guy rep by CAA and they share clients and their social and their connections because of it. It's preposterous to think that this has some sort of influence. And I'm looking at the quotes because what you often
He
see with
actually
this,
did kind of do what you're asking him to do. He
well,
disclosed.
which is why I said the caveat. It's good that he acknowledged the connection, but then the only time I've seen that connection acknowledged is in this context. The only time I see the connection acknowledged is when they're accused of the conflict of interest explicitly, and they've got to fight back against it by saying it's insane. It's not insane. It's not a conspiracy. It's a conflict of interest. That's all it is. But what they argue against is the idea of conspiracy. I'm looking at the quote from Reese Davis. I've been at ESPN for 30 years. Never has an executive said, say this, don't say that, whatever. Never. Not one time, Davis explained. And while I'm very friendly with Jimmy, that's Jimmy Sexton, I'm a CAA client. Jimmy is not my rep. Matt Kramer is. Matt Kramer of Woj fame, I believe. But I'm friends with Jimmy. I have great respect for him. He would never do that. He would never come to me and say, hey, I need you to say this. The point is, he doesn't have to. That's the point. That's the point of these connections. That's the point of leverage for CAA. That's one of the reasons they're involved in all of these different ventures. That is one of the reasons that people sign up with them is they've got that all-encompassing leverage and these connection points. The idea is not that you guys all get together and you form an explicit conspiracy. The idea is that the conflicts of interest, they just work as they should. You're not going to attack people who are your allies, you are in business with. You're not going to go after them, and it doesn't need to be said. It's just what happens happens. It's as Charlie Munger, the great investor, once said, show me the incentive and I'll show you the result. So, no, I don't believe it's an explicit conspiracy, but there's such a contrived propaganda campaign that they get themselves opened up to these sorts of accusations. When you see people aligned with CAA hitting the same talking points in defense of Lane Kiffin, people like Rick Pitino, where they blame the calendar, all of a sudden these people with the CAA connections started defending Lane Kiffin and blaming the college football calendar. Look, I don't know how explicit any of the planning is, but the incentives just work as they do. These
Oh,
people
by the
are,
way, one
yeah,
other thing.
sure.
It was pointed out to me by a well-placed media insider. CAA negotiated the SEC's TV deal with ESPN. So
Oh,
that's another
yeah.
layer of it. It's kind of fun. But
Well, as
I
Patrick
don't
Myers in the chat says, incentives matter. It's not a conspiracy, it's incentives. Yeah, it's incentives.
but
It's conflict of
I
interest
mean
and
I
incentives.
actually don't know that it's like a CAA thing per se, but like it's Saban. Obviously Kiffin worked for him. And
That's
so what Saban didn't disclose, even more beyond the agency connection, which is that they share Jimmy Sexton as an agent, Saban was advising Kiffin through this whole process. So Saban told him go to LSU, and that's not like something that is reported via anonymous sources or anything. That's something that Kiffin actually said in his LSU introductory presser. Now, you might think it's odd that Saban fired him at one point and now is advising him, but they do have sort of like I don't know, almost close to a father-son relationship or uncle nephew or whatever. But you would like when Saban is advocating for Kiffin, you'd like him to say, I've been in touch with him in all of this. But
Yeah.
that it did become a big ESPN conflict of interest story. They need Saban a lot more than he needs them. Now, look, would ESPN pack up and fold and die if Nick Saban retired from College Game Day or went back to coaching? No.
No.
But College Game Day is one of their real flagship properties. It's gotten record ratings the last 2 years. The additions of Saban and Pat McAfee have been very significant in driving viewership. They've got Fox really gunning for them with big noon kickoff, both in the game window and in the pregame show. And so Saban is pretty important. And he's just not bound by any type of like rules that you were when you worked there, or like if they
No.
ever, for whatever reason, hired me. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm pushing 40, but
Mm, your choice.
the I would have different rules than Nick Saban does. He's basically allowed to do whatever he wants because he's incredibly valuable. He's probably the greatest college football coach of all time, and if he doesn't want to disclose
Yeah.
conflicts of interest, there's nobody pointing a gun at
Well,
his head and making him.
nobody really seems to care about anything anymore, and there's no more honor or rules, and so we don't even expect this to happen. I just don't want to be misled, and I don't want to be condescended to. That's where I'm at with
Well,
it.
I mean, here's the thing. It's not like anybody got away with anything. We now have this like new Twitter where it really, I don't know if this would have been the case on old Twitter, but in this version of Twitter, um, CAA is this like main character, and everybody is accusing them of concocting this. So,
Can I take a little bit of can I pat myself on the back for being a trendsetter, Ryan? I wish to. I wish to one day have a Wikipedia bio, and this is talked about because it's not that I hate CAA or I think it's evil or anything like that. It's just that this stuff matters a tremendous amount. The agency connections matter a tremendous amount. And I don't like being treated as though I'm Charlie Day and it's always sunny with the crazy chart behind me and it's all a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy. It's not. And I was very amused. I was listening to Nick Wright was talking about this. He had a really good take on it, but I was amused because he was saying, I used to be with CAA. I'm no longer with CAA. I think people play up this stuff way too much, and nobody ever told me what to say, this whole sort of thing. And then he's ripping Lane Kiffin. And I'm going, well, you're kind of the only guy doing this. The people with the CAA connections aren't doing this, so maybe it kind of does matter.
Oh my
And
God,
even
Mike Francesa. I mean, I think he actually is rep by CAA, but it's a different corner. I don't know if he still is, but he at least was when they were launching his like app. I don't know how many years ago, but he went on a massive screed against Kiffin,
well,
which made
he
me laugh.
might. I mean, maybe that's evidence to the contrary, but it's not something I'm seeing with forward-facing
Mike is
television,
just gonna say
ESPN.
whatever he wants at all times. He's gonna always let it fly.
Yeah.
He's
Well, he's got the ultimate leverage because he's dependent on nobody as a singular act, which might be something we might talk about. That wasn't on the docket, but the Max Kellerman Bill Simmons interview where he was talking about Francesa and how if you make it as a solo act, you get paid so much more and you've got so much more leverage, which is in Kellerman's estimation why Stephen A was shunting him off to the side. But I'm getting digressive, I should say. Yeah, there are people who are going to say whatever they want to say. There are people where the conflict of interest is not going to impede their honesty. But I want to be clear. I think we all have conflicts of interest. I don't criticize friends of mine as much as I criticize strangers. I just
right.
don't.
You're
I
not
just
going
don't.
to.
Yeah, and I might try to couch it and I'll try to be honest with everything I say. I'm never going to mislead, I'm never going to lie. But these incentives work on us. And whether it's you used to be the boss of a guy or whether it's you guys are all a part of the same agency, these matter. These anchor the conversation, these direct the conversation. And I think in terms of the agency stuff, this is a fairly cynical operation, agenting. I mean, the agencies they do a lot to get good coverage for their clients. They lean on people to get it. I just think it was doth protest too much by Reese Davis and the other people making this point. That's all I'm saying.
Are people Teutonia World says ahem Pablo ahem. Pablo is represented by CAA. Has he said
Well, but
anything
I
about the
think I think
kind
Tony is saying that I've gone soft on Pablo, which would be a fair point. I think if somebody was alleging that, I also believe I was critical of the recent Riley Gaines podcast, but it is all through that prism of if I didn't know Pablo, if I wasn't friendly with Pablo, would I, not pull this punch? I'm not even aware of what I'm doing necessarily, but I think that's fair. I think these sorts of things happen. And yeah, that's the main point. Or, I get it. They argue the position, the people accused of this conflict of interest from the most extreme kind of fantastical example where it's all an explicit conspiracy on a spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. We just see results that would indicate that you're compromised on this particular issue. That's it.
do you want to get into that Max and Stephen A stuff? Go off
I
topic or
do.
we okay,
I
let's do it.
do.
Let's
It
do it.
doesn't have to be the
No
docket.
one no one's telling us what to say.
Mm-mm. Not at all. I think I was most intrigued by Max Kellerman's confidence in himself. Maybe I shouldn't have been. He's a nice guy. He didn't strike me as an arrogant guy when I met him. I've only met him once. We're not friends. We're not rep by the same agency. But his interpretation that the relationship broke down because he was too formidable an opponent for Stephen A in these debates. I guess that's fair. I
Mm,
could never make a claim like that about myself. I was jealous of that. I wish I had more confidence in myself, Ryan.
well, the way this is like a tricky thing to talk about as like two white guys, but
What?
there was a
No, there's a vibe shift. Where are we going? What's
well, I
happening?
was, that I was couching what I was about to say. So there was like a
Can't
very
wait.
clear moment of demarcation when Stephen A started to really turn on Max and not want him on the show anymore. And that was when
PTO.
like Terrell Owens said something to the effect, I don't have the quote in front of me, but it
No, he
was
said
like Max is
Max
blacker than
is
Stephen A or
he's
something.
he's blacker than you are, Stephen A. And I can't remember whatever racial controversy was happening. But yeah, that is a fascinating moment where he almost doomed Max Kellerman by unfairly, I would say, trying to embarrass
But
Stephen
the
A
thing
that way.
is he didn't do Max Kellerman because nobody has a better life than Max Kellerman has had since exiting First Take. So he got booted off of First Take by Stephen A. and he it like when ESPN demotes you in a lot of cases, they give you a contract extension to come with the demotion. And so Max got a new deal at ESPN to host a show at 2 p.m. And then they fired him to make room for Pat McAfee. And so Max had 2 years at, like, I don't know, somewhere around 5 million a year where he could just do whatever he wanted all day. You had a year of that, and you said it was like one of, not at 5 million. You weren't quite
Yeah,
at Max Kellerman's pay level,
not
but
so much.
you did, I remember you saying it, like, what like amazing time that was, where you're getting this ESPN paycheck and you can just go hiking all day.
Yeah.
And so he has that for 2 years. And then he gets into these deals with the Saudis and TKO and the Ringer. He's probably making more than he was at ESPN. He's on these premier fight properties, and he's going to do a podcast a few days a week with Rich Paul that I think that, look, maybe they're not, it may not do the biggest, like pardon my take numbers, like how many people listen to the whole show several times a week, but when they weigh in on a topic of like any type of significance, everybody's going to see it. So
Hmm.
he's going to be on this property now where his voice is probably going to have more resonance than it did when he was on First Take, and he's on these big boxing fights, and boxing is his lifelong
Well,
passion. So I don't think, like, I mean, Stephen A wound
I,
up in a roundabout way
yeah.
doing him a massive favor.
Yeah, as often happens now with ESPN, but used to never happen in the past. In the past, when ESPN pushed you out, that was the end of your relevance. But as ESPN has waned in relevance, people find new opportunities. They find other things to do. From what I can see, it was about Kaepernick. It was about Kaepernick. That was the Terrell Owens, and I wonder about the
It
race.
doesn't really matter what it was about, right?
I suppose I think it actually might have spoken to. It might have spoken to the opposite of what T.O. is saying, which is back then with those sensitivities, Stephen A felt like he had more latitude to be honest about certain conversations, whereas his co host might have been terrified and just saying certain things in order for people not to try to push him out and yell at him. So it was about no one signing Kaepernick, I guess. I mean, it was a crazy time back then. It's a crazy time right now for different reasons. Uh yeah, it's a juicy breakup, Ryan. The Kellerman Stephen
Well,
A.
like, what the funniest part about, I don't know if funny's the right word, but Stephen A took these shots for 6 years, like one after another, after another, after another, and Max said nothing. And then Max, in like a 90-second clip, basically is says something to the effect of, I'm a lot smarter than he is, and he didn't want to debate me.
Mm, I mean, Stephen A is gonna have a response.
Oh yeah.
That's
Sure as God made green apples.
that's the peril of going to war with somebody who buys ink by the barrel. I would have trepidation. So that's a lot of boldness from Max Kellerman right there, I would
I'm
say.
surprised it hasn't come yet.
I am. I mean, it's going to be dramatic, is what it's going to be. Do you want to get into? Are you avoiding the honest conversation, Mr. Bucks fan? Are you avoiding
No,
that?
I'm not avoiding it. I don't care.
You don't care? You knew it? I
No.
know the Bucks fans in my life, they said he got us a championship. We've seen this coming for a while. He can't compete here. What are you going to do? That's more or less the vibe from
That
what I've
is
seen.
the I mean, the issue is that after the championship, like, he's held the front office over a barrel for the last several off seasons, and they've made these succession of moves that have mortgaged the future. And so they
Mm,
may not be good again until like 2040. They don't have like first round picks as far as the eye can see. And now at the point where this is like finally coming, we've reached a juncture in the NBA where the Windhorst is talking about this. The executives don't want to give up several first round picks for anybody. Now,
yeah.
Desmond Bain just got a lot of like he fetched a bounty this past off season. So I don't know how the tide could have shifted
Well,
literally since
let's
then.
let's do some expository because
All right.
Giannis recently had that calf strain that people are questioning because
It
it
did look
comes
fake. It looked like he was faking an injury.
and he had it once before and it actually looked equally weird. So who knows? But it happens simultaneous with these leaks that he wants to be traded and he wants out. Now, because we do the media criticism and what people aren't saying, that sort of thing here. That's what we do.
Yeah.
I think that there is a far smaller range of trade possibilities for Giannis than what is being bandied about right now. Almost because it's more fun to talk about some of these scenarios. We're acting as though Giannis is saying, hey, trade me anywhere. And that's not what I hear from people behind the scenes. That's not what I'm hearing internally. It is more of a
Sounds like
trade
he
me.
wants to go to the Knicks, right?
He wants to go to New York. That's what you hear. That's what people say. Maybe he can
That's what they
change
all
his mind.
say.
That's what they say. Maybe he can change his mind. And I do think maybe he's not being a Lane Kiffin level scoundrel, but there are aspects even if you can sympathize with him because the situation he's been in and how they don't have the talent. And you can say, I get it and I understand it. It's his turn to move on. There's another aspect where he wants to have it both ways, a little like Lane Kiffin. He wants to be the cuddly, nice guy who's loved by everybody. And he wants to put this pressure behind the scenes on the front office to make a lot of moves, as you said, that I don't think have worked out well and have put the organization in a precarious situation. And now additionally, he is reducing the leverage that the Bucks have to fetch this bounty that they want because there is not a long list. This seems more like an Anthony Davis asking out situation is what I'm saying. Then please, I'm Kevin Garnett. I've had it with Minnesota. Just trade me somewhere good. That doesn't look like this right now.
Well, there's not that many places that have the type of like assets to trade for him that would like command. I mean, I don't even know if the Knicks are one of them, but it's
Yeah.
basically like the Nets and the Spurs, as far as I'm told, where like those are the ones who have like enough of these picks to make it really worth the Bucks' while. Now, like we see like when the Bucks when he's out, they're terrible. Like I
Yeah.
was watching them like lose a game by like they were down like 30 in the fourth quarter at home to the Blazers who stink a
He
few weeks ago.
legitimately, even with Jokic doing what he does, he might be the best player. He actually still might be the best player, Giannis, and is underrated in part because of where he is and the lack of attention paid. And
And they
he's just,
people
yeah.
just don't respect like the big men as much as they do guards. I know
No.
Jokic is also a big
Oh,
man, but
Titonia's got the hand up. We got our resident other Bucks fan here. We got our Bucks fan here. Let's bring him in. Let's bring him in.
So I don't have a lot to add to this. I'm just going to steel man the other side as this kind of went nuclear a couple of days
Mm.
ago. The conspiracy take, first of all, what Glass mentioned on the injury seems kind of fake thing, but that's more fun to talk about than I think anybody really believes. The conspiracy take is that this all started when Windhorst went on local Cleveland radio and basically rewarmed up last summer's takes, and that there's actually not any new information here. That Windhorst did a local radio hit, gave the same old information. Sham says, yes, that's what I've been saying. The thought in look, I don't have sources, I don't know. The thought is Giannis has locked out Shams. Who really knows? And that really this is just the same old story reheated after the Bucks lose to the Wizards and have a really bad loss. Doc Rivers, who we all kind of think is probably a liar, then comes out and says it's the same Lane Kiffin kind of thing. Basically, comes out and says he hasn't asked for a trade. Well, does that mean his representation asked for a trade? You know, it's kind of politician speak. But there is, if I don't know what to believe, but to steelman the other side, there, if you really break it down, there's actually no new news here that the common man, like you guys may know better, but that the common fan is saying this is the same stuff we heard that we were fighting about in June. So
Well,
that's
it's hard to say because Giannis is such a waffler with this stuff, where he makes these motions. I've been hearing that Giannis wants out of Milwaukee since man, it maybe since 2019, 2018. I've got these memories, these pre-pandemic memories of being in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center and a really plugged in person sitting with me and saying, he wants out. He's coming to the Warriors. They're making it happen. And it never ended up happening. So I think what makes this hard is that he might say, trade me. And then next week, he might change his mind. Right. So I don't think, though, that it was re-warmed up. I don't think it was reheated. And I think that if it was, then you would have seen more, I didn't say that, or I'm happy here. When it gets out like this, it becomes
And
this big a
he's like,
story.
at some point he scrubbed his social channels and there's like very little bucks. By the way, that's an amazing 1-2 punch of Milwaukee County Stadium artwork on behind you. This is riveting for any
Ooh.
audio people who are listening to this later.
Right.
But the yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was like necessarily new what Windhorst said, but it really does just put the Bucks, they're gonna have to move him because at some point they're gonna have to assemble some assets that would make it so they might have any chance at reasonably competing in the next decade. Like, what are they gonna do? Are they just literally gonna like field a triple A team until 2035 right now? Like, they have no way of getting better from between drafting new players or the ability to sign them. And so like
It might
at
have
some
to be
point,
Brooklyn. It might have to be Brooklyn. Don't they've got picks, right?
I
Like
mean, so when you say he wants to go to New York, obviously he'd prefer to go to the Knicks. Would he accept Brooklyn? Is that all right? I don't know.
them's the rumors. Them's the rumors. You
It,
know, it's
it,
if you can't get the Lakers, you get the Clippers kind of thing. And I'd imagine that the Nets just have more assets. I haven't run it through all the different Kevin Pelton, Bobby Marks scenarios, but there's just not a lot on the Knicks
It's the
that's
Nets or the
appealing.
Spurs are the teams that have the assets to get him. I mean, the Thunder obviously do too, but why would they? Why would they have to want to pay him 60 million a year when they're fine without, they don't seem to have any issue. The funniest thing was the report that came out of Chicago from this guy, Lou Canellis. He's a local Fox
yeah.
anchor saying like that the Bulls told him no thanks. It's like, yeah, the Bulls have just been so great for the last 10 years. You can see why they wouldn't you could see why they think they were above a player of Giannis's caliber.
Yeah,
So the thing is, if Ethan has been hearing about this, or which kind of I think was blanched at the other kind of times we talk about this, there is a logic to. I've been hearing about this for 7 years, and we can think about this with our relationships or anything else. He is persuadable. He's not going to do sit-ups in his driveway like T.O. He's not built to go the Durant or LeBron route. So there is a certain logic. Like he can stay or go. I'm a little bit over it, but I do think if you're the Bucks, why not wait him out? He's going to fly. We're going to go on a 10-2 run at some point, and he's going to catch feelings again, as opposed to just giving him away, at a low market. There is some argument to he has re-signed in the past. We might as well keep this thing going because I do think he will get booed, and I think he wants to be loved.
yeah. Well, I think it's just push for the Nets or nothing. I think that
Yeah.
probably is the way you go about it from the Milwaukee perspective. Yeah, you want Knicks. They have nothing really that we care about. They have nothing we want.
All right.
It's going to be Nets or nothing. Maybe there's a way you can get podcaster extraordinaire Michael Porter Jr. I don't know. I'm just thinking. I'm just spitballing here. Uh, just thinking about these different scenarios. And I will say, I will reveal that Waz is almost triumphant secretly, Titonia. He's triumphant over how this has exploded. And I don't know what you guys even argued about. I don't even know why, but he texted me about that. He wanted me to tell you, ha. I mean, he didn't say ha. It was more profane. I hate to tell you this. I hate to reveal this, but that's what I was told.
Just like previous generations were like, I don't believe in paying attention until January. I used to live and die with the NBA. It doesn't matter until the All-Star break. None of this matters. I mean, this is all just. I mean,
I don't
this is
think it
ESPN
matters
fodder.
until the second round of the playoffs.
Yeah, but there's a trade deadline, so that aspect might matter in this particular case. But yeah, the NBA, and this is a sad thing. I know people who do follow it ardently, but it has become more like baseball. It has become more, I follow my local team, and the national conversation is less interesting to people. I think aspects of it have worn on people. Stuff like this has worn on people. There's less of an appetite, even if we're talking about potentially the best player in the NBA wanting
You
to choose
really
a new
don't
place.
see these baseball players demanding out with 2 years left on their deal.
No, no, it's more of an NBA thing. Well, we'll get to Tony out of here. I suspect he's coping, but he could be right. Who am I to say? Who am I to say about all of this? Um, Ryan, eventually we'll get to the mergers and the
Yes.
whole massive thing with media, but I do want to do some hating. Is what I
Ooh,
want to do right
eating.
here. So, some hating. Yeah, I want to do some hating. What can I say? I didn't want to be a hater. I didn't want to be a LeBron James hater. I never wanted it. I was never into it. I was a defender of his after the decision. I rooted for the Heatles. I didn't like all the
Could you?
outrage and the scorn. Yeah, I was rooting for him. I was rooting for them. I've loved watching his career. I on League Pass back in the day would be watching in the mid-aughts. LeBron is a phenomenon, and in many ways, his credentials they're beyond reproach. I mean, what an incredible career! But it reminds me of this, Ryan. It reminds me of this. There's a Family Guy scene where they're all going to die. The family is, and Peter Griffin says to his family that he didn't like The Godfather. An incorrect take, to be sure, and they ask why, and he says it insists upon itself. It insists upon itself. I feel that way with the LeBron thing and the legacy and the touting. It's just been a massive talking past the sale to such an extent that I'm almost trying not to downgrade him because emotionally I want to downgrade because I am tired of being talked past the sale. Prime example Thursday night. They're going against the Raptors. He's got this 10 points a game streak? A 10 points a game streak. Managing to score 10 points a game dating back to 2007. He's at 8 points. And on the final play, score tied, whips it out to the corner, passes up the opportunity to go and extend the 10-point streak. Lakers win. Massive ESPN media coverage on the sacrifice. I look, headline on ESPN, remarkable scoring run is over. Stephen A. Smith, LeBron's winning pass, a perfect example of why he's a top 2 player of all time. And he's making a big deal out of sacrificing for the win. What the hell are we doing here? There's no such thing as a 10-point a game streak. I have never heard of a 10-point a game streak.
You
I've never heard of it. I just spittle. I just look, you know what I think is impressive about LeBron? That he played over 2 decades at a high all-star level. I don't need to be talked in to this thing that has never existed before in any other context. And I would say additionally, Ryan, as I am ranting, it's an indicator of how susceptible you are to the next current thing. I'm throwing that out there. If somebody can present something to you called a 10-point a game scoring streak, and you can then react to it like a trained seal and commend somebody for sacrificing it, you're going to fall for whatever the next crazy political hysteria is because this is not an organic thing. I think LeBron is a great player. Credit to him for making a pass to the open guy in the corner. And then the final aspect of hate is he once scored 8 points in an NBA Finals game that was the biggest series in his career. What say you, Ryan?
it's very clear that you don't bet on sports, because this has been like a thing on gambling Twitter for years where people just like make these like outrageously large bets on LeBron to score 10 points and win every time until yesterday. So there was like a tweet that came out yesterday, like in the middle of the day. This guy is like, DraftKings is out here giving away free money. And he put out a screenshot of his $15,000 bet to win 500 on LeBron to score 10 points. And people have been like making those bets and they've been going like viral on the gambling circles of Twitter for years. And so it was actually like a ludicrously low number. Like you were betting $26 to win one.
Mm.
But I know that might seem stupid, but there's way more than a 26 out of 27 chance that he's going to score 10 points in any given game. But like somehow DraftKings got him, and so like that was going viral this morning. Now, in terms of like ESPN reacting to it, I mean, part of it is fortunate that it's like a Friday and there's only one football game to react to last night. I mean, if the scoring streak ended on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, I don't think it draws massive reaction across the ESPN ecosystem. But
Mm.
yeah, like that's the thing though, is all of them, like, Stephen A is an actor. He is trying to come up with some reaction to the end of this streak to get you to pay attention to him, and it worked.
It did work, and he's doing his best to create content while in secret he's thinking about his response to Max Kellerman. Doubtless true. I was just throwing those out as random examples. I could just talk about a bunch of examples from the NBA world where I feel I'm gaslit with this weird propaganda that isn't needed. I don't need to be propagandized into thinking that LeBron has had a great or historic career. And there's just been this propagandizing
You
of it.
missed the other button of Stephen A, calling him he's definitely a top two
It was
player
good
of all
little,
time.
it's good
He's
little
pointing out,
little
like, yeah,
jab.
you're still not top one.
Yeah, and the talking past the sale part is I haven't thought about him scoring 8 points in the Mavericks finals game in a long time. And I went, oh my God. It is a weird sort of this almost damns him further. You were able to score 10 points in literally every game since 2007 in any sort of context, in any sort of condition, except when your team had a massive talent advantage in the NBA Finals that one time. Yeah, I do think, I mean, I arrived at the take that he's not Mike. We can't compare him to Michael Jordan. That's the take I arrived at. I would have arrived at it perhaps less hastily. I was never one of these guys, Ryan. I was never one of these guys that said the bad finals game earlier in his career keeps him from Michael Jordan status. I believe in redemption. I believe in arcs. I believe that building yourself up after that and beating the Warriors in 2016, that could overwhelm. But after being shown that he could always produce that much in any situation, I went back to it and I went, yeah, I think that alone, it's Mike number one.
I hadn't realized that it was one of those like regular season streaks that by virtue of an asterisk omitted a poor finals performance. You just broke that news to me.
It's weird, isn't it, that we're talking about a streak that's only regular season. I guess it's good for the regular season to matter for the NBA. So perhaps that's all for the great. But yeah, it's a streak that just didn't include the finals because I guess those games don't matter. I don't know.
I
If you
guess
include
not.
the finals, I guess Michael Jordan probably has the all-time 10-point streak, a thing that never existed to me prior to this. That's not a thing. It's just not a thing getting to 10 points. It's just
Yeah.
what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Um, mergers. We're going to talk about whether movies are done. We're going to talk about massive implications. Hey, man, this is the news right now. Netflix wants to buy Warner Brothers, wants to buy HBO. I know you've got thoughts, man. I know
I
you've got
do.
thoughts.
So, we've talked several times about when Paramount wanted it and what a juggernaut that would create in sports. Netflix buying it really puts it tilts the entertainment world and has almost nothing to do with sports.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. But so basically, there's been three companies bidding: Comcast, Paramount, and Netflix for some reason, it seems like the current WBD leadership prefers Netflix. I don't know whether it's because that means they're gonna like keep David Zaslav employed or he's gonna
Hmm.
make more money from it, or I'm sure that there's some self-interest there from his perspective. I haven't sussed out what it is, but they announced last night Netflix won. So Netflix is going to acquire the studio and the HBO Max streaming service from WBD, and then WBD is going to send its cable networks, TNT, TBS, True TV, Discovery, etc., basically out on a life raft to die in the middle of the ocean. That's not what they're saying, but
Hmm.
that's what Comcast did with Versant, with like USA Network and CNBC, and the now MSN Now, and formerly known as MSNBC.
Yeah.
Um, this creates just a massive conglomerate in entertainment. You look at like not only the two streaming services, but the Warner Studio and the IP they have, whether that's like Harry Potter or DC Comics and their whole film library down the line. It really creates this massive entertainment thing. But it all feels like a ruse to me. It doesn't feel done. It feels like we're in the fourth inning. And whether that's because Paramount comes over the top of them with another bid and they're like, just kidding, we'll take this one. Or the Trump Justice Department gets involved and says this is too big. We've talked about how the Trump Justice Department can put its thumb on the scale and either give the green light or the red light to these types of deals. uh this idea that Netflix and WBD have announced that this is done and happening, my skepticism hat is on, and I don't believe that we've heard the last word.
And it's not just from the right. There's also some objections on the left. In Variety, there's an article on Elizabeth Warren, senator out of Massachusetts, calling the merger an anti-monopoly nightmare. Netflix Warner Brothers would create one massive media giant with control of close to half of the streaming market, threatening to force Americans into higher subscription prices and fewer choices over what and how they watch, while putting American workers at risk. At
Well, yeah, I
risk.
mean, but the production workers, the writers, the actors and actresses, when you look at like what type of like you look at the market share of the amount of like scripted content Netflix is creating, and what Warner Brothers Studio is creating, and you have like you just take away a bidder in that marketplace. Now that's going to be true also if they went with Comcast or Paramount, but
Yeah.
this creates a company of like larger scale and a really, really dominant like buyer at the top of this food chain in a way that I think that if like Netflix is still in more competition with Paramount or Comcast if one of those two gets this company. So you look, the production workers thing is big. Like the actors and actresses and the writers. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to feel as bad for them because they're not, physical laborers, but it does definitely create an imbalance at the top of like this ecosystem.
The great tweeter Miles Brown says, "So you're saying I won't be able to go to the movies anymore, but I'll get worse movies faster from the comfort of my own home until I can't afford Netflix or my home anymore? I don't see what everyone is upset about." I saw Sandros, Netflix head honcho, talking about how people just don't want to go to the movies. And so there's a lot here. I mean, I've
Well, it's
got.
because it's a chicken
Hmm.
or the egg thing because the movies that have been in movie theaters are direct now because a lot of the talented creators are making this started with The Sopranos, where now they're making 10-hour episodic series instead of a 2 to 3 hour movie. And so the movies are Drek. They're just putting out
Yeah.
like repurposed comic book and Star Wars stuff. Like, what's the last movie you've seen that I actually know? Friendship was made like the whole theater just like laugh out loud. But Most of these are bad, and so it's also really expensive. Like I don't know if you've taken your kids to the movies, but
I have, and it
it like
is.
if you take your wife and two kids to the movies, between the movie tickets and the concessions, you're looking at like a $100 day. It's hard to get out for under that. And so it just, the I know everything's gotten way more expensive and I'm an old man yelling at a
Well,
cloud,
but
but
it's expensive and depressing because the movie theaters are depressing because you can smell the death on them, and that almost exacerbates the spiral. It's not the same sort of event that it once was, but that's not even what I want to eulogize initially when I look at this merger. What I find to be sad about this is what's happened to HBO under WBD and how HBO was this magical object that you would invest $2 billion into, and it would spit out $4 billion every year in prestige profits. And the people involved in it, and we're talking about 10 years ago or so, a couple mergers ago, the people involved in it just wanted to make really high quality content. And there was no theory of scalability or how to make it any different. It was just this magical thing where you put in this amount and you got that amount. And that just wasn't good enough in the business world. And so they fell prey to this rat race of trying to get into streaming, of trying to make all sorts of stuff, of trying to change the label, of trying to be Max or HBO Max. And now they're just a piece of something sold for something, and they're just not in any way what they were.
and
And
like
they're
yeah,
just part of the grand slot parade.
Netflix has made a lot of original content. None of the shows that Netflix has made, I mean, maybe House of Cards, but like none of them have really stood up to, The Sopranos, The Wire, Curb Your
Well, the
Enthusiasm,
one thing that we
Succession.
talked about, the one thing last time, Ryan, which is
Right, but
K-pop Demon Hunters.
that's a one-off movie. The K-pop Demon Hunters is, I mean, I know now there's going to be 45 of them because it was
Yeah.
successful once, but let's see if they can like repeat that. But there was no like episodic series. I mean, so yeah, Stranger Things and House of Cards have gotten a lot of viewership, but I don't think anybody holds them up to Sopranos or Wire or Succession, right? In terms of how
No.
good they are.
No. And yeah, the golden age was a while ago. People make these arguments sometimes that you're just being old and cranky and you're talking about the good old days and it's a fallacy, it's a logical fallacy. No, some things get worse. Other things improve. Other things improve. This is how my life
Now we
has
can
gone.
buy a 100-inch TV for like 30
Yeah.
bucks, but that's better. But the quality of stuff you watch on there is probably worse.
Yeah, some things get better and other things get worse. I'm not a declinist. I don't think things just altogether get worse, but some things do. And it's a fallacy, just as much as it's a fallacy to say everything just gets worse, it's a fallacy to say everything gets better. The level of television that was available to us 15 years ago, way better than the slop onslaught we have right now. Way better. I think Pluribus is really interesting. I hope that it manages to land the plane, which is hard with these mystery box shows. And Gilligan, he's got an auteur sensibility. I think that's something that could be really good. It's early, but there's just not a lot like that out there. There's not. There's a lot of what's out there is not very substantial. And when it does get any sort of buzz, you've got two problems. One is that it's now graded on this massive curve against a quality that's just not altogether great. So we exaggerate how good it is. And then the second part is that it just isn't a shared event. It's not a monoculture event anymore. We don't share anything anymore. They're making a new Game of Thronesy thing. I don't even know what it's called. Who's going to watch that? It's not going to be like when Game of Thrones was on. It's not going to be anywhere close to that.
Well, you know what we do share? This is a hard pivot. The NFL on Thanksgiving, monoculture event.
Yeah, yeah.
Although it still comes with an asterisk. So do we want to get into that?
Yeah, let's close with the NFL. I can't get enough NFL right now.
So Chiefs Cowboys on Thanksgiving, um, eye-popping headlines, including one by me, that it shattered records.
Hmm.
57.2 million viewers on CBS, The previous record, Ethan, for an NFL regular season game was 42.1 million. That means that this was allegedly 15 million viewers more than the next watched NFL regular season game of all time. And so here's the thing. Everybody watches the NFL on Thanksgiving, and this might have been the biggest of all time because we had the Chiefs and the Cowboys, who's the biggest historical draw and the biggest modern era draw, competing against each other. Both of them needed the game for playoff contention. It was a single score game. It was on in that 3:30 p.m.
It
Eastern
looked
window.
good too. Like some about Jerry World on a big stage like that. It just aesthetically, I know I'm interrupting, but it just looked, it
It
looked
does.
big
It
time.
felt like big business. And so there is a case that it could have been the most viewed game ever, but loyal listeners to this show are probably sick of us saying that these are not apples to apples
No.
comparisons. They have changed the viewership metrics over the last 5+ years dramatically. And so you can only compare these things to like really recently. And even versus last year, they added a new big data plus panel um like measurement system to Nielsen. And so there's just a different sample of households being taken into account than there was before. And so you can argue that sports should have been graded on out of home viewership and bigger samples and streaming all along. Maybe not streaming because that's relatively newer, but certainly out of home. But you can't say that it was this many viewers now and it was more people than were watching 20 years ago when there was no streaming and there were 40 channels and literally like the only option was to watch the NFL on that day.
Yeah.
There's no Netflix. And
Yeah.
so we actually have a control variable. I sent this to you. Let me find it real quick. So the we found out with a college basketball game that aired after the Packers Lions on Fox, which was Michigan State versus North Carolina. Before the big data was counted, Fox Sports announced that it had 5.5 million viewers.
Look
Then,
at the
after
sleuthing
big
over
data
here.
was counted, it had 6.5 million viewers. This means, Ethan, for those of us who are not as good at math, that big data added 1 million viewers and approximately, I don't know, 18% to the total. And so we finally got a control variable to like figure out what big data adds. And I think that now we can just kind of assume that with these big live sporting events, it's adding 20% or so to the final till.
That's a massive addition. Good sleuthing right there. And we're the only ones who care. Everybody just runs with the headline and the crazy premise that in a world of Netflix, aforementioned Netflix and YouTube, and kids not even liking sports as much as they used to, more people than ever are watching these NFL games. It's still the monoculture. It's the last thing we have. It's the closest thing we have to everybody watches it, but it is not
It's
as
NFL, it's
watched.
big NFL games, especially on holidays and in the playoffs and presidential debates. Those are the two things we have
Yeah.
that everybody
And
watches.
and it's harder to get the whole family watching, frankly, because I think kids are less into it. I don't think that my son was particularly interested in the games at Thanksgiving. So, but it's still,
I can tell you, not only are my kids not interested, they actively say, get sports off the TV. So it's
yeah.
like it's like they can't even bear to have it on in the background where they're staring at their iPads.
Yeah, that is how it goes these days. And yet, the big NFL games, they have a big impact. I just had Dieter Kurtenbach on, and we were talking about, I'm coming to this realization that maybe you always knew, which is that the entire conversation about the NFL is dramatically tilted by the national window games. Ever more so after those Thanksgiving monster games.
Oh,
And it's
absolutely,
it's
yes.
ludicrous. Like we just had a big
You know what? You know
NFL.
what's an example of that? Your 49ers have not played in a lot of national windows this year.
I'm
Nobody's
aware.
saying a damn thing about them.
I'm aware. This is exactly what Dieter and I were talking about, where I'm going through the strange thing of watching the team I follow, which is in theory a big brand team. And there was a lot of hype about them before the injuries, and they just keep winning coming down the stretch with this classic Shanahan getting stronger down the stretch sort of scenario. And I can't find anybody talking about them. And then conversely, we just had a big national conversation about whether the Dallas Cowboys might actually be the best team in the NFC despite their record. Well, they're going to be sitting at home wondering about that, I guess. Yeah, it's just crazy. It's crazy the extent to which, if everybody saw it, that's going to be what the analysis is based on. And the games outside the national window just didn't even happen. Like those might as well have been unleashed.
Yeah, it's like why when your team plays bad, you want it to be in that Sunday 1 p.m. Eastern window, like because nobody sees it. Like they might see like short highlights on Red Zone, but they're not catching like the broader nuances.
Yeah. I mean, the Niners had the Monday Night Football game over a week ago, but the quarterback threw in 3 interceptions, and then that dominates conversation instead of, well, they won easily despite that, which is, it's interesting. It's interesting, Ryan. This is good. This is good. This is a great show. I feel like we covered no politics. Should we just never do politics? Should that be what we do?
It does feel a little better. I mean, and yeah, I think this is good. We covered what we wanted. We even shoehorned in one or two other things in there, and I feel like it was complete.
Yeah, politics, stupid. Don't know. We might return to it. We might not. Thanks so much to Ryan. Thanks to all of you. Check out his stuff at Front Office Sports. And until next time, folks, see ya.
Good job by you.
Good job by you.